The Centresteer podcast is sponsored by Commonwealth Classics and Knightsbridge Overland.
This month's Centresteer podcast is sponsored by Commonwealth Classics. Commonwealth Classics is a direct importer of classic vehicles from Europe and South America and has a rotating collection of rare and unique Land Rovers. Their showroom is located in Virginia, just 45 minutes from downtown Washington, D.C. Visit cwclassics.com to view their current inventory of classic vehicles, and be sure to follow them on Instagram so you can see what they're up to. Thanks, Commonwealth Classics, for your continued support of the podcast.
The Centresteer podcast, a podcast by, for, and about Land Rover owners.
Welcome to the Centresteer podcast, podcast number 114 for September 2022. Centresteer is a podcast by, for, and about Land Rover owners. I'm your host, John Costage. Joining me via Zoom is Harold.
Hey, I'm there.
Morgan is dealing with Placid Lassie.
That would be Dixon in Placid Lassie.
Dixon is dealing with Placid Lassie.
Unless he's kidnapped Morgan.
And Morgan is unavailable tonight.
Possibly kidnapped.
This month, Bruce Fowler and Mike McCaig preview Anarc's 75th Diamond Jubilee. Mike and Bruce tell us about Anarc and the Jubilee plans later in the show. And Bruce will update us on the winter romp and the conservancy that's been set up. And Mike, first time on the program, will tell us about Eve and much more. Eve is his 1968 Series 2A that he has had 75% of his life, I think, virtually. Certainly almost all of his driving life.
Well, 80% of Eve's life or 90% of Eve's life.
Thanks for listening, and a big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. We appreciate your support. Visit our website to see how you can support the podcast. Either as a Patreon supporter, you can buy a shirt or a sticker, or buy us a tea, which is similar to Patreon, but you choose the amount. And as a bonus for our Patreon supporters, most guests answer 10 questions, which is a rapid-fire, quick question and answer round. This month, Bruce and Mike both participated in the quick round 10 questions, so that will be out to our Patreon listeners later in the month. Also, thanks to Bob. He has given us more brown water, and he commented this time, more brown water all around. Hearing all of Ben's stories, Ben Smith was our guest last month, can't help but bring a smile to one's face. Our small world of Land Rovers is made better through the care and passion Ben has for the mark. Kudos.
Thanks, Bob.
And David Short, who you may recall is with ROAV and was instrumental in getting Oxford to America, reported in. He said, a nugget for your news, his Disco Sport windshield cracked driving out in Colorado for the National Rally. A rock hit the windscreen, and it's not a manufacturing defect. He wanted that to be clear. But the replacement windshield is on back order with no ETA. Although he did message me, I think, just this morning to say that the windshield finally got replaced. So it took a couple weeks to get the windshield replaced.
It is longing to become a Freelander.
Well, his second point in his message, he said also, quit bashing Discovery Sports. They are awesome. I took mine to the top of the Rockies.
No, it is the Freelander for a new age.
It is. It's the follow-up Freelander.
Freelander 3.
It should have been. By rights, that's what it should have been.
I think it was originally intended to be until they axed the Freelander line.
This is your monthly reminder that 2023 is Land Rover's 75th anniversary. We're inviting all Land Rover owners to the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix in July of 2023, especially you Series and Defender owners. You have 9 months. We've reached single digits. 9 months to get your Rover ready. Now that the 2022 Vintage Grand Prix is over, we have begun planning activities for July. We're expecting a dedicated area for all trucks attending, and a parade lap of the race course is not out of the question. And to best manage the activities, registration will be required, and we'll share all the details with the podcast listeners as soon as they are worked out. I have made contact with the Vintage Grand Prix planners. They're kind of in a quiet period after the Vintage Grand Prix. They start gearing up here in October, November for planning. And as you'll hear about after the news, Anarc's Diamond Jubilee will take place June 15th through the 18th, 2023 at Greek Peak Mountain Resort in Cortland, New York. Details will be announced in November, and you'll hear all about it from Bruce and Mike later in the program. Now it's time for the news. First up, thousands of JLR employees are sent home as supply chain shortages halt production. This was in the month of September. The firm, which has major plants at Solihull in the West Midlands and Hellwell and Merseyside, plan to restrict operations through the end of September. The car giant employs about 40,000 staff, and it's not clear how many will be asked to stay home, but it's understood that those affected will continue to be paid. The company has blamed the crisis on a global shortage of vital semiconductors made worse by COVID lockdowns in China. A spokesman said that it made changes to the production schedule due to supply chain disruptions. So if your Defender or your new Range Rover is a bit delayed, that might be why.
Yet again, another chip shortage.
And next, JLR converting Halewood factory to build EVs. So JLR has begun converting its Halewood plant to support the company's transition to electric vehicles. After several years of uncertainty, workers at the Halewood plant can finally take a deep breath, and for the rest of us, get ready for the first all-electric Land Rover due in 2024. The Halewood plant, located on the outskirts of Liverpool, was initially opened by Ford in 1963. And Ford has made some interest in Halewood as it announced plans to invest $316 million to upgrade the facility, build electric power units for Ford electric vehicles in Europe. The facility is getting another major upgrade as JLR begins converting the facility to build electric vehicles. Isn't that the plant that has the Evoque and the Disco Sport?
Yeah, I think so. But in terms of JLR's heritage, that was Ford converted it over to Jaguar production when Ford and brought Jag into the fold. So given that Jag is going all electric exclusively, it's kind of makes sense that they're starting with this plant.
Right. I guess they're probably expanding then, not just Jaguar, then it'll be Jag and Land Rover.
Well, Jag is going to be an exclusively EV company, whereas Land Rover is going to have both.
Right.
So I would suspect there's going to be some synergies there in production as well.
And next, JLR chooses Redline Detection's battery and coolant leak detector for global toll program. Redline Detection, the world's leader in diagnostic leak detection technology, announced that JLR had mandated the battery and coolant leak detector as an essential tool at all of their global dealer locations in 160 countries. The innovative technology gives 100% assurance that battery enclosures, battery coolant systems, and other EV components are sealed to meet all OEM and battery manufacturer warranty standards. The BCLD is used during battery maintenance in or out of the vehicle, after battery exchange, after collisions, during preventative maintenance, and after any torsion such as towing or lifting the vehicle. This ensures that EV components are safely sealed against potential water or debris intrusion. BCLD gives audible and visual progress and precise pass-fail indication when testing is complete, with accurate pressures and timing specific to each battery and vehicle type. OEMs, field service personnel, and battery manufacturers can assess data logging and reports remotely. BCLD is also programmable for future battery and model year configurations. I wonder if other manufacturers are using a similar system, or is getting it from an outsourced company that already knows what they're doing.
Could also be, given that they are a British company, they need to know that they suck at controlling leaks, so they needed to hire an outside consultant of some sort.
That's right. You didn't want to continue that Land Rover tradition of leaking. Sounds like partly something that would be on board to the vehicle, but also mainly at the dealers.
Yeah, this is actually a service tool. I was thinking when I first read this, it was something built in, but no, this is going to be something that the dealer or a service facility is going to use after servicing something to make sure that they've done it right and that there are no leaks.
So maybe something is part of like that OBD2 sensor that gather data and be able to read.
No, this looks a little more involved than that.
Next, JLR Range Rover declared most unreliable used car in the UK. The last generation Range Rover, which has since been superseded, has a dubious honor of claiming top spot as the UK's least reliable car in Warranty Wise's annual reliability index.
Nothing new there.
No. Number 2 was BMW M3, then the Range Rover Sport, Porsche Panamera, BMW X6, Porsche Cayenne, Audi Q7, Bentley, Mazda CX-5, and then at the end of the top 10 here was the BMW M5. So actually, BMW was in that top 10 more than Land Rover. Land Rover was in there twice. BMW was 3 times.
So BMWs suck 50% more frequently.
At least in the UK. But here in America, 4 terrible 2022 compact luxury SUVs that Consumer Reports predicts owners will hate. Yeah, guess what? All 4 are. First, there's the Land Rover Range Rover Velar. Consumer Reports predicts drivers won't like the Velar very much due to previous owners' experience. While no data is available for the specific categories Consumer Reports inquiry is about, they're guessing that Consumer Reports felt that the ride was too stiff, had poor visibility, low predicted reliability rating, and infotainment controls that weren't easy to use.
And these are precisely the things that Velar owners will love about the Velar.
Then there's the Jag F-Pace. Partly, they'd say here, publication didn't like poor gas mileage, which was only 20 miles per gallon overall. Didn't offer a very competitive infotainment system. Its air conditioning isn't all that strong, which is kind of surprising. Another drawback was a noisy cabin, poor visibility in the rear, bland interior compared to other Jaguars, and a disappointingly stiff ride.
Well, the Jag didn't need to be building trucks anyway. That's my opinion. But
David Short, cover your ears. The Land Rover Discovery Sport. Consumer Reports gave the Sport one of the lowest scores for luxury compact SUV category. There wasn't much the publication liked about the vehicle. Consumer Reports predicted owner satisfaction scores were relatively low. No, there was no data which categories previous owners didn't like. The long list of gripes Consumer Reports had about the Disco Sport include a transmission that wasn't smooth, unbalanced engine performance, poor ride quality, infotainment system that was slow to respond, and less than stellar gas mileage at 21 mpg overall. Sorry, David. Finally, the Land Rover Range Rover Evoque could be a terrible compact SUV. The Evoque received same poor score that Disco Sport has, and for just about the same reasons. While the SUV has a handful of nice features, all the issues the vehicle has won't save it. The Evoque has poor acceleration, jerky transmission, bad ride quality, poor fuel economy, 20 mpg overall, and infotainment system's too complicated to use. Plus, it has a higher price, anywhere from $44,000 up to $55,000.
Now, aren't these 4 vehicles that Consumer Reports says that the owners are going to hate, aren't they some of the best-selling ones that the brand has?
Pretty much. I don't think the Velar, except for the Velar. Velar is not one of the
Evoque and the
Sport
and the Disco Sport are selling well, and Jags are not selling well at all, but the F-Pace is selling reasonably well as Jags go. I think Consumer Reports just really doesn't understand the mindset of Land Rover owners.
And next, the Land Rover announces the annual Trek Off-Road competition for North American retailers in 2022.
They're back.
And it's going to take place at the Land Rover Experience Center in Manchester, Vermont for U.S. and Canadian retailers. It is Trek 2022 is a 2-day competition inspired by the original Camel Trophy competition, comprised of qualifying trials and finals. The competition, utilizing all new Defender 110s, is designed for Land Rover retailer staff to educate and test some of the best off-road driving experts across the U.S. and Canada in off-road driving, navigation, and team collaboration. This year's competition will pit 100 3-person teams, 90 from the U.S., 10 from Canada, each representing the various sales region of North America, against each other in head-to-head team and group challenges. The teams will compete in a series of 100 identically customized 2023 Land Rover Defender 110s vehicles for the regional trials. The winning team from each wave of competition will return to Manchester in October for the Trek 2022 finals, where the overall winner of the competition will be crowned. And it looks like Lucky 8 was again part of Trek this year. Good for them.
Right. They built all the Disco 5s for the previous one.
2023 Range Rover Sport Review International First Drive. And this one's out of Australia.
I like the color in the picture. Nice green.
It is. I agree with you. Yeah. And it does look, it's a good, dark, deep, almost emerald green there. The first new Range Rover Sport in 9 years has arrived with engines and technology that place it up there with the flagship Range Rover. More than simply an option for those who can't afford a Range Rover, the Sport has become an iconic in its own right. It is, as I said, out of Australia. They're what they liked. Exterior styling is beautiful. V8 engine is a cracker. Cabin execution and space are excellent. They didn't particularly like price of options as something to watch. Rear wheel steering takes some getting used to. And massive wheels not ideal for our roads. Those would be Australian roads, which probably would be similar to American roads.
Although, oddly enough, they tested it in Spain. So I don't know if they're talking about Australian roads or Spanish roads at that point.
And if you want to read the full review, well, of course, I have a link in the show notes to it. There is a full review, and you're welcome to do that. But it does end with, should I buy a 2023 Range Rover Sport? And they say it's difficult to find fault with the new Sport, such as the competence of the all-round package, regardless of the engine variant. Getting the model you want might be hard, and working out which option to pay for is also difficult. This is an accomplished luxury SUV that you can have some fun driving, though, and it comes with a serious dollop of street presence and credibility. It's also better than any Sport that went before it, and a potential farewell to the old ways of powering a vehicle. It's a fitting swan song. And note in there, they called it a luxury SUV. I think an important word there.
Well, it is a Range Rover. It looks a bit like a Velar on steroids with the roofline such it is.
Well, and the handles that come out from the door.
Right, the flush handles and all that.
And then there's also Edmunds did a similar review, probably went to Spain also. Their summary here was redesigned inside and out, new touchscreen operating system, V8 engine gets a bump in power, plug-in hybrid with estimated 48-mile range, and the 2023 model introduces the Range Rover third edition of the Sport. And they have a long, lengthy review also, of which they conclude by saying, Edmund says, our favorite things about the redesigned Sport weren't particularly sporty parts. Instead, the redesigned model is delightfully smooth and upscale, not quite a performance machine. The Range Rover Sport instead shines as simply an excellent luxury SUV. Although the one they had, at least in the picture here, they had a blue one, not the green. I think I like the green better.
Well, it could be that they're testing one that's in North American spec, so it's probably a different truck.
And prepare to be wild, the 2023 Range Rover PHEV First Drive. This was also Edmunds. What is the Range Rover PHEV? The Range Rover PHEV is also known as the P440E. It's a plug-in hybrid version of the standard Range Rover, equipped with an engine and a battery that powers an electric motor. The PHEV can drive under gasoline electric power like any other hybrid, but it has a party trick. It can travel up to a manufacturer estimated 48 miles on silent emissionless electric power alone. This lends to an important distinction. While plush SUVs like the X5 and the Cayenne and the Bentayga offer PHEV variants, no plug-in currently offers the EV distance of the Range Rover PHEV, set to arrive in the U.S. later this year. Starting price of $110,000.
48 miles would take care of my commute for a week.
Yes, it would.
With some to spare.
With extra. Yeah, you get a little side trip to the grocery store. What's under the hood of the PHEV? You'll find the same standard engine as the regular Range Rover, turbocharged 3-liter 6-cylinder. The difference is that the P440E PHEV also draws power from a 31.8 kilowatt hour battery pack, up from 13.1 kilowatt hours in the previous PHEV sold in 2021. That battery provides power to an electric motor integrated within the transmission. In total, the engine and the electric motor combine to make 434 horsepower, 405 pound-feet of torque to all 4 wheels. So that sounds pretty cool. I like the fact that it can travel on its own on just electric.
That's the point of the PHEV technology, is that on short hops, it's an electric vehicle, but you have your engine for the longer trips.
When you want to do your overlanding.
Or road trips to see family or whatever. but you're running to work and back. I mean, 48 miles ought to be more than enough for most people.
Next is a video feature from Car Buzz, the 2022 Land Rover Range Rover. This is the new Range Rover. And they spend about 15 minutes doing a walk around, a sit inside. This is not a driving video, but this is one that shows you what they call the coolest features. And two that I'll mention.
And some of the dumbest features.
Well, there is that. Let's mention, I think maybe the what I thought were the coolest features of the ones that they mentioned. One is there's event seating. So as we know, the clamshell rear tailgate of the Range Rover has continued. When the rear tailgate goes down, of course, the top part of that goes up, of course. You can configure that tailgate rear section. Firstly, it can become just a divider for the trunk space so things don't kind of fall out or roll around. But if you flip it around and open it up and flip it around again and do some things, you can turn into a seat. There's that with actual cushions and a backrest with cushions. So you could sit on the tailgate and at maybe a drive-in movie, and even the speakers in the door above you would work. And I guess they'll work, and you can control them from there too. So that's kind of, they call that event seating. Sounds kind of.
You'd have recliner seats and surround sound at your drive-in movie.
They don't recline. There's no reclining. At least not there.
Oh, okay.
Not there,
all right.
Sir. No. Interior seats, the second row seats, they do recline.
Still, you'll have comfy leather seats and surround sound whilst you're blocking the view of everyone else in the drive-in.
And then I thought the other cool feature that this one had, and hopefully, I don't know if this is in any other of the Land Rover products, but it has the cameras all around, and so you can see what's going on outside the vehicle. So if you're, especially for off-roading, so you don't have to get out of the vehicle and look at the obstacles, theoretically you could use the camera system to see that. But if they get dirty, and here's the cool feature, there's a provision to clean those cameras. Apparently it's like a washer button. You push the button and it cleans the cameras. So if they get muddy. So that was pretty cool.
Of course, the ones underneath, you could always just go for a little drive in the James River and see all the fish swimming around it, and it'll be self-cleaning.
That's a good way to handle that. Yes.
It's worked for us in the past.
And then on the, maybe, is it really necessary part of the Range Rover, the rear armrest in the rear seats is powered. So you push a button and the armrest will come down. And in that armrest is a display screen, which, they're everywhere now. So including the display screen, you can control the seat, you can control the lighting, you control the climate, you can control your seat massage and all that business in that one. But also there's a button to push so that the end of the armrest will electronically open to reveal the cup holder.
Yeah. Can't wait for that to break.
Yeah, exactly. What's that about? What do you think? $6,000 to replace that whole unit? Because that whole thing's is gonna have to be replaced. They're not gonna just replace.
Plus another $1,200 to recalibrate the cup holder.
So if you're interested in some of the cool features of the new Range Rover, check out that video. Talking about the new Defender, Land Rover's 75th anniversary Defender is freshly minted, and this is, I believe, for North America only. Next year, as you all know, is the 75th anniversary of Land Rover, and this commemorative Defender, known as the 75th Limited Edition, will be available in 2- and 4-door configurations. Will only come with a 3-liter turbocharged inline-6. Standard features include a folding fabric roof, 11.4-inch touchscreen, but the signature feature is the Grasmere Green paint exclusive to this model. The 75th Limited Edition will be available in either the 90 or 110 trims, 110 trims, sorry. The Land Rover's terms for the short wheelbase and long wheelbase. Regardless of the door count, everyone will be powered by the P400 3-liter inline-6, a turbocharged and supercharged hybrid. This engine is good for 395 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. 8-speed automatic transmission is standard, as is, of course, on-demand 4-wheel drive. The 75th gets heated seats, steering wheel, heated. I think that's a heated steering wheel, not Steering wheel's optional. A heads-up display, upgraded stereo, 11.4-inch touchscreen. The real story is the paint, dubbed Grasmere Green. This shade was last used on the Heritage Edition Defenders, and it's a direct link to the early Land Rovers, the sort of semi-institutional color you might see in a 1950s British hospital. It's quite a bit lighter and less metallic than the green found elsewhere in the automotive landscape. So that is the Grasmere Green that they're going to use for this. I thought I read that this was only North America. I guess I was wrong. This must be a worldwide car.
A spiffy 75th logo on it too.
Yes, and they've not announced the price yet either.
Well, I think the green does not really look all that close to the Heritage Green, in my opinion.
At least in the photos when you do the comparison, you're right. The one thing I wish they would have done, though, is used steel wheels instead of the alloys in the Grasmere Green. Well,
it just means somebody's going to be pushing them in the aftermarket.
Next, taking the Land Rover Defender 110 over sand, and this was Motor Trend. They have a long-term 110 in their fleet, and a short bit of this from the author, Christian Seabog, who took a ride on the beach. He says, I pulled past the gate into the parking lot to air the Defender tires down. I normally avoid airing down unless it's absolutely necessary. I'm lazy, sue me. But the Land Rover's relatively high, 4750 PSI front rear recommended air pressure, coupled with how easy the Defender's new onboard air compressor is to operate, was motivation enough. I quickly connected the air compressor to each wheel, twisted the dial to drop the pressure to 35 PSI and let it painlessly deflate each tire. One of the things I love about driving the Defender is how seamlessly the auto terrain response 2 mode and full-time four-wheel drive system transitions between different surfaces, and that proved to be the case here on the beach. The sand at Oceano Dunes varies greatly. It's soft, silty, and almost desert-like up near the dunes, gets harder, firmer, and rutted toward the middle of the beach, and it's soft and wet down by the waterline. No matter where we were on the beach as we explored looking for a good spot, the Defender was faultless. In the few soft sections where Land Rover started to sink, all it needed was a little extra throttle, while four-wheel drive and terrain response sorted things out. It's quite literally off-roading for dummies. So that was his experience there. He took a couple dogs with him, which was pretty cool, in the blue 110. I like that blue. That's a good-looking blue.
Yeah, it's a nice throwback to the old Arliss blue.
And moving to competition for Land Rover, Enos is readying its dealer network to sell Grenadier in the U.S. So Enos surprised the automotive world when it dropped its brand new Land Rover Defender like Grenadier and everyone. Now, 2 years after its debut, Automotive News spoke with the executive vice president for North America to get an update. And he says production has started on Grenadier, and Enos VP of North America, Greg Clark, says he's currently reviewing the planned 35 sites that have been selected for Enos dealers. And Enos says customers are waiting. The company claims to have 5,000 reservations here in the U.S. Automotive News asked a hard-hitting question: is the company worried about actually converting those reservations into sales? Clark says there's nothing to worry about. And while some potential customers or reservation holders might be curious or interested in direct sales, Clark said direct sales are of no interest to Enos, but didn't really give a reason as to why. So they're going to have 35 dealers throughout the U.S. No mention of Canada.
Wonder where our nearest one will be.
Next, the Rivian. Rivian Camp Mode lets you rest easy in the great outdoors. Rivian CEO got on social media to show some of his electric truck's trick new features, dubbed Camp Mode, included in the over-the-air update that's designed to make things more convenient when the truck becomes a temporary home. In a short video, they run down several of the features, but the piece de resistance, if I can use that, is the Rivian's auto-leveling feature. It uses the truck's fully independent air suspension height adjustment to place the body dead flat. It's particularly useful detail when sleeping in the vehicle at a campsite that has an uneven surface. The Rivian suspension comes with an impressive 6.5 inches of vertical range at each wheel. Beyond auto leveling, Camp Mode also allows the car to go into deep sleep mode to conserve battery charge. The internal displays can be turned off completely as not to blind campers or draw attention to the vehicle. Additionally, floodlights in the mirrors can help illuminate the campsite. There's also a noise level adjustment and courtesy mode management, but they didn't elaborate on any of those details. So that's kind of interesting for the Rivian. I actually saw one in person over the summer.
Looks like they've poached the Sand Glow color from Camel Trophy.
Well, a Camel Trophy participant has been involved in the testing of the off-road features of the Rivian.
Cool.
And next, Scotland's electric Munro off-roader is tentatively headed to America. Read a good bit of this because it's the first time we've heard about it. Scotland's based car maker Munro has published photos of an electric four-door off-roader aimed largely at commercial users, designed the model with ruggedness and easy maintenance, plans to sell its first car in the US and Canada starting in 2023. Visually, the body-on-frame Munro is characteristic by a function over form design. It's tall, boxy, sits high off the ground, while flat body panels and relatively simple parts make the roof headlights keep production costs in check. It's more closely aligned with the trucks designed by Bollinger Motor than, say, GMC Hummer EV. Inside, there's not a lot going on. That's intentional. Munro fitted its off-roader with individual front seats, simple-looking flat dashboard, a 3-spoke steering wheel, manual windows, a tablet-like screen where you'd expect to find the instrument cluster. Development work is ongoing, so the model specifications haven't been set. But Munro quotes an output of 376 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque from an electric motor that spins the four wheels via 2-speed transfer case. Maximum driving range checks in at 168 miles, which is hardly a stellar figure, or about 16 hours on what the company calls off-highway use. Properly configured, the SUV can tow about 7,700 pounds, and it offers a 2,000-pound payload. The drivetrain is compatible with 100 kilowatt fast charging technology. Munro has started taking deposits for the SUV. Pricing in the United Kingdom starts at £75,000, which represents about $88,000 at the current conversion rate. Pricing for the American market hasn't been announced, but the company has its sights set on our shores. It signed a deal with RIN, a company that specializes in leasing electric cars, to distribute the model in North America. An Autocar learned that Munro is targeting Canadian forestry business, Florida farms, Texas oil fields, and gold mines in Nevada.
Yeah, it strikes me as being something that would be a good site vehicle for large operations like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're not traveling a far distance during the day. Maybe you're only going 10 or 30 miles at a clip, and you can have it charge overnight at a work site.
I could see racking up 100 miles in a day, just back and forth and around and stuff, but that's still within the range and you could plug it in.
And next, remembering Queen Elizabeth, the gearhead monarch, and a couple stories here about her involvement in Land Rover and driving. Queen Elizabeth, the longest lived and longest reigning monarch in British history, and by all accounts, the lifelong driving enthusiast, has died. She was 96 years old. Her Majesty always had a thing for driving. At the age of 18, when she was Princess Elizabeth, she joined the military, serving in the Women's Auxiliary Territorial Service.
She was the first female member of the royal family to enter military service. And it took her a year and a half of begging her parents to make that happen.
And she drove army ambulances and learning to repair heavy trucks on the battlefield. Despite some initial reluctance from her father, King George, the prince's military service was very well received by the British public. Newspapers dubbed her Princess Auto Mechanic. That's the first time I've ever seen that. I assume that to be true. The Queen's eagerness to serve in the war effort seemed to have kicked off a lifetime of driving enthusiasm. Throughout her 70-year reign, the Queen was known to drive a stick-shift Land Rover around her 20,000-acre estate, occasionally scaring off poachers. On this Jalopnik article, I like this video at the very end here where she's driving. We'll let you listen to a little bit here.
I love this bit. It's very sort of
rolling down.
Norfolk, isn't it?
This is a Defender 110.
Not everybody can see the Norfolk is flat around here, is it?
Guys, you looking for rubbish?
Yes, we've done all right. We've done the holes. We got the rough ones. That's a police superintendent there.
I know, that's what made me wonder. I thought they'd arrested him.
So that was a Defender 110. She's driving with sliding windows. So that would make it a stage one?
No, it's it would be a 110 before they called them Defenders, but 83 through 85, I think, had sliding windows.
There you go.
So it's an early 110.
And then another article here, which has 10 facts about Queen Elizabeth II and her special connection to Land Rover. She completed many of her engagements in Land Rovers, and you've probably seen a number of those photos. She had series trucks and Range Rovers throughout her reign. She had a personal Defender to get around Balmoral. Her husband's final journey was made in a custom Defender hearse, and that was instead of having a gun carriage, that was a Land Rover turned into a gun carriage. It was a 130 converted. She was a longtime L322 Range Rover owner. Apparently, she liked the particular vehicle a lot, and she had it for 15 years. Apparently, didn't upgrade the model. She apparently liked that a lot.
Well, she probably couldn't find anything newer that still had a manual transmission in it.
That's true. That's right.
I read somewhere that the Works built her a V8 new 110, and she had it for a couple of weeks and sent it back, asked for a manual transmission to be put in it.
I like it. Now that I like.
She knew what she liked. And she didn't feel she needed to settle. It's good to be the queen.
She had, plus other members of the royal family, issued the royal warrants to Land Rover and to Jaguar. Apparently the only marks that had all three, or at least brands that only had all three of the royal warrants. She visited the factory many times. They picked up President Obama personally in her husband's Range Rover. Of course, then there's the story of her driving the King of Saudi Arabia, and he was kind of shocked to see.
Yeah, booting him out of the seat so she could drive.
Of course, we know she's owned many Land Rovers, especially Defenders, over the years. But I'd like to point out the Defender and Range Rover were her most favored models, with many examples of each used and owned over the years. The Duke of Edinburgh was a big fan of the Freelander. Just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, and they made him stop driving.
And then finally here, arguably the link between the royal family and Land Rover has gone back to 1948. King George VI, the Queen's father, was gifted the 100th Land Rover to roll off the production line. Only got to enjoy that vehicle, though, for a short period of time because he passed away in, February 52.
So he would have died with a smile on his face, at least.
And then the BBC had an article, Queen Elizabeth, A Life in Land Rovers. And this one said, throughout her life, the Queen was pictured behind the wheel of a Land Rover. So special were the cars to the royals. A bespoke one carried Prince Philip's coffin when he died. The couple's enduring relationship with Land Rover vehicles was part of the royal family's DNA, said motoring journalist Quentin Wilson. Land Rover, now JLR, has held royal warrants since 1951, after it was first granted by King George VI. And almost immediately after her coronation, the Queen and Prince Philip were spotted doing royal engagements in specially converted Land Rovers, and you could see what a preference it was for them, said Mr. Wilson. Converted vehicles probably had Prince Philip's design input. He explained he was really interested and keen on them. There's some pictures here of the various Land Rovers they had. I really like the ones, which I do remember seeing at the Gaydon at the British Motor Museum. They have that burgundy red, deep red color that I guess only the royals get to have.
Claret,
thank you. There we go.
That was the color of her hearse this past week, by the way.
Yeah, and that was a Jaguar, right?
That was a Jag. Yeah, but the leaper was removed from the bonnet, and it was replaced with a statue of St. George slaying a dragon.
Well, our condolences on the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, who was certainly a big fan of Land Rover. Special to us because not only did she drive a Land Rover, but she drove a stick and continued to do that long into life. I think that's great.
And she swung wrenches at them.
Moving on to Land Rover Series 1, Series 1 that was involved in Operation Musketeer, part of the Suez Crisis. And this Land Rover Series 1 was built in 1956 as part of a military contract for the British Ministry of Defence and delivered to the 1st Battalion West Yorkshire Regiment for use in Operation Musketeer, better known as the Suez Crisis. And it went up on the auction block. In 1968, the Series 1 was sold as military surplus and bought by a farmer who used it for a few years before parking it in a barn. It was later discovered by an enthusiast who bought it and gave it a light restoration. Years later, it was sold to Operation Musketeer veteran Edwin Robinson, and then the Bantam who bought it purchased it back. Over the years, the Series 1 has become well known in British Land Rover circles. It was featured in James Taylor's book Original Land Rover Series 1, and it has been mated into a model by Oxford Diecast. It's due to roll across the auction block at Bonhams in the middle of September with a price between £20,000 and £30,000. And it did sell. Looking at Bonhams, it sold for almost £30,000.
That seems like a bargain for something like that.
Yeah.
With that much history.
How good a shape it's in, even with, I guess, light restoration. It's remarkably in good shape.
Well, yeah, it's really more of a preservation than a restoration. There's still plenty of patina to be found.
Almost seems in better shape than Oxford.
Well, it's perhaps had a better life.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's true. It wasn't completely flat packed and sat for 30 years. And then a video of a 1979 Land Rover Santana 88 Series 3 diesel. This is all audio and video certainly, but if you want to know what it's like to be in a 79 Santana driving around, let's give you a sample. That's it. The driver is out outside the vehicle giving us a little walk around. He never says anything. I assume it's a he, but has a head camera and starts up the vehicle, walks around. Let's skip ahead to some driving. As it goes across bumps and whatnot. So that's 11 minutes if you want to get a sense of driving a series truck. Maybe someone who doesn't wants to know what it's like before getting in, this might be a good opportunity.
In that video, you can see that it's reached its terminal velocity of 15 miles an hour.
Or if you like, you could put this on a loop, maybe play this in the background while you're going about your day. It'd be kind of neat to have that just going on.
Yeah. While you're driving your hybrid electric Range Rover, you can port this into the speakers.
There we
so
go.
You can sounds like you're driving something real.
So that's your 1979 Land Rover Santana 88. And finally, we did this last month. We're going to do it again because there was another one we found. This is the Land Rover Defender Lego. This time it's versus a log bridge. These, I don't know. I find these fascinating and fun. So they take a Lego version, the Technics Lego version of a Land Rover Defender, the 90 edition, put it on to a treadmill, although this time they're pulling it up using a couple sticks, which look like logs. Put on the treadmill, turn on the treadmill, and then throw objects at it and to see how it fares. It's now gearing up, the treadmill's moving, and as it gets going, doing fine, tethered to either side of the treadmill. Then they throw, it's like a Twix candy bar at it, does fine. And then as we get further on, they start throwing Skittles. It's kind of like going off-roading, don't you think, Harold?
Yeah, kind of. Only more colorful.
That's true. It is very colorful. Although, if you watch this enough and you watch it all, it loses wheels constantly. The wheels come flying off of this Lego Technics.
Somebody didn't use a torque wrench on the lugs.
Oh, there goes a wheel right now. So for some fun, you want to go check out and see a Lego Technics actually doing something. Because once you build it, it just sits there. At least this way.
Another wheel coming off.
Yep. Oh, it does. Nice jump.
And there's the spare tire flinging the carrier.
So actually, maybe this is like an allegory to. Whoa, that was pretty impressive. They threw a ramp and it did a nice jump up, and then there were Skittles all over the place. That was impressive. Now it's on 3 wheels. Look at that. Nope. Replay. Instant replay.
It's like it goes up the ramp and crashes through a wall of Skittles.
Oh, it lost both wheels now. Both front wheels come flying off.
All parts coming off this vehicle are of the highest British quality.
Doesn't seem like, though, like a allegory to life. You spend all this money on a vehicle and then take it off-road or take it onto a treadmill and gets bashed around.
Well, I think the moral of the story is if you're going to go driving around in a Defender, watch out for big bags of oversized Skittles.
And that's the news for September 2022. Knightsbridge Overland seat covers help protect your classic Land Rover. Whether you are on the trail or cruising around town, they're the perfect solution for protecting your pristine Land Rover seats or to cover up your well-worn and aged seats. Each seat cover is hand-cut and sewn in the USA for a custom fit and looks like it came straight from the factory. Every seat cover is crafted using durable 600 denier Cordura material It's waterproof, oil, and dust resistant. Knightsbridge Overland seat covers are designed to be extremely comfortable and help keep you warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer, while providing protection against mud, dirt, grime, and more. Knightsbridge Overland seat covers are available for most classic Land Rovers, including Series, Defender, Discovery, and Range Rover. Select the Knightsbridge Overland seat cover that's right for your Rover. Available in both tactical and non-tactical versions in 4 colors: black, tan, mocha, and gray. I have the mocha, which I think pairs very nicely with my truck. Our tactical seat covers include military-grade MOLLE webbing that accommodates pouches, weapons, tools, first aid kits, and more. Non-tactical seat covers feature 3 handy pockets for much-needed extra storage in your Land Rover. Visit knightsbridgeoverland.com and enter STEER10 at checkout for 10% off your Knightsbridge Overland seat cover order. That's knightsbridgeoverland.com and enter STEER10 for 10% off your order. Protect and enhance your Land Rover seats with Knightsbridge Overland. And now on the Centresteer podcast, joining us, we have a returning guest and we have a new guest. The returning guest is Bruce Fowler and the new guest is Mike McCaig. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I mean, John.
First edit. Maybe I'll leave it in.
Well, he could be thanking Mike for sharing the spotlight this month.
There we go.
So you're here because you're on the Anarc board of directors, and as I am, and also Dixon, who I think Dixon hasn't joined us, and we'll see if he does later. And there is planned for next year in 2023, as everyone probably listening to the podcast already knows, Land Rover's 75th anniversary. Anarc is planning a Jubilee 75th anniversary celebration in June in Greek Peak, New York. Tell us about the Jubilee and when's it going to take place and where and any details.
The Jubilee is going to be in June of 2023, 15th through the 17th. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes.
Yes. And it's at Greek Peak, where it was held also in 98 for the 50th. And it's basically open to all Land Rover enthusiasts, person driving the series to the brand new Defender or Range Rover. It's really it's emphasizing clubs. So we're basically trying to get all of the North American clubs to get together, attend under the umbrella of Anarc. Mike, you want to run with that?
Sure. Anarc is the North American Association of Rover Clubs, and it's incorporated nonprofit. It's a coalition of Land Rover groups and clubs throughout North America. Ottawa Valley and ROAV were the founding members back in 98, founding members again for the reincarnation of Anarc. Our first big event is what John was just talking about, or Bruce was just talking about, the 75th.
So why Greek Peaks? Is that simply because it was where the 50th Jubilee took place?
No, we researched many different locations, but it turns out that Greek Peak really wanted us to return, and they have the infrastructure, and it's a beautiful setting right there in the mountains. It's going to be a nice location.
So what exactly is supposed to take place during the Jubilee? What activities will there be?
Oh, gosh. Everything from vendors on site, car show, parties in the evening. We got mountain trails that are going to be great. Just about something for everybody, including a drive-in movie.
Ooh, what's being screened on the drive-in movie?
Of course, it has to be Gods Must Be Crazy.
That's true. Probably right.
Well, of course it does. So is there a special parking area for clapped out Series 1s?
Oh, absolutely. We have lots of basic camping parking areas. There's a car show for everything from clapped out Series 1s to the latest and greatest Defenders. And we have, I believe, Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 47 RV hookups plus another 15 tent campsites with power. So there's a little bit of place for everybody to stay, as well as the beautiful lodge that we stayed in when we were previewing the facility.
Right. And I want to add, speaking of the beautiful lodge, Greek Peak is under new ownership, and they have totally renovated all of the facilities and increased the area around the lodge for public space. And it's not the Greek Peak we were at 98. I mean, it's a completely new facility, and it's catered to the whole family this time around. I mean, they have activities from a water park to ropes courses to spas. So one of the reasons for picking Greek Peak is it's a full family affair. The whole family can come, and if the wife and kids don't want to go out on the trails, there's other activities they can do on site.
Or the husband and kids don't want to go on the trails.
That's correct.
So there's going to be parties in the evening, I take it. I think there's a big dinner planned.
Big dinner on a Friday night. We have a welcome party on Thursday night, and the vendors thank you party on Saturday night with the drive-in movie following.
Tell us more about the trails that are going to take place, and what will they be like? What would people expect if they're attending? What kind of damage? Let's get to it. Any pinstriping? How challenging will they be?
Well, in the worst case scenario, there can be the tumble down the ski slope, which would
good. There's a high risk factor. Okay, good.
We can have the golf ball effect vehicle at Pace Quad. But no, joking aside, if you were at Greek Peak in 98, our trail network was very limited. It's not the case. The staff at Greek Peak is going to work with us to build a complete trail network. And I think we have like 800 acres to put trails on. Wow. And we'll be going out there next month to lay out our trail network. So I'm envisioning green laning, a nice gentle trail to just drive around the mountain and sightsee, to some pretty technical, difficult trails a little further east for the person that really wants to work out that modified vehicle they brought.
So the attendee will be able to choose his desired level of body damage and then go to the appropriate trail for that.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think we didn't mention that we're also going to put really intense RTV course out there also. So if you don't want to hit the trails, you'll still get to work out that vehicle in the RTV course.
And if someone were to clear their schedule and have time, they would work on the Anarc Cup so that we could have an RTV winner that would receive the Anarc Cup. I'm pointing at myself because I'm the one that's supposed to take up that cause.
Well, I know somewhere where something could be made like that.
You were on the list, sir, of people that I needed to approach. So,
all right. Well, make a list. We can talk about that.
There's only so many hours in the day.
Oh, tell me about it. There needs to be about 4 more per day, I think, and an extra day per week, and then we'd be all set.
That's right. So are we talking a swivel ball for a cup?
Maybe.
It might be Freelander related.
Ooh.
It might be an entire Freelander on a...
Cut the roof off the Freelander, right? And put it on a pedestal.
So RTV, explain a little bit about what an RTV is for those who maybe not have experienced one before or attended a Land Rover rally type event.
Road taxed vehicle, basically it's a challenge course for vehicles over-the-road vehicles.
So there are different obstacles, right?
Exact. It's a track caned playing field, which you have to navigate without racking up points.
Right. So if you reverse, that might be additional points. The lower the points, the better. Similar to golf, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
Right. So if you've attended MAR, they have at least where I've been, they've had RTV courses there, and that's kind of I think the same idea. I know we haven't completely settled on what all the RTV activities are, but they can include that chicanery, if I can use that word. Are we going to do the blind driver? I kind of enjoyed that one. And any other activities around that? Do you think that we might have for the RTV activities? That's
up to the RTV committee. What does Mike have to do in that?
I think there are plans in the works for other activities. Go along with the Anarc Cup. It'll be a series of competitions. So there's other ideas in the works, but the RTV will be the main challenge.
So we're talking trail rides, and those trail rides are, again, you're going to have different levels of technicality, so that if you have a brand new Range Rover and you just want to challenge yourself a bit to see how that works, to having a fully kitted out, 1980 Land Rover Series 3 FFR MOD, XMOD, to really challenge yourself, there'll be those abilities, the capabilities of the trails.
Definitely.
And can folks trailer in an off-road vehicle?
I'm not sure if we've discussed that. All vehicles have to be registered and insured. Mike?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that you'll have to have a licensed and insured road vehicle.
So that would, even if you're just off-roading it, if you were to trailer something in, that sounds like that's not going to be an option.
You could bring it in on a trailer as long as it has a license plate and insurance.
Right.
How you transport it to the site is up to you.
Right, exactly.
Trail rides, will that be just an open situation? Can you come and go as you please, or will they be led activities?
They'll be guided for the most part. Yes, you'll be signing up for levels of difficulty on trails.
And what about other activities going on? I know Bill Burke is, am I allowed to say that? Bill Burke's going to be in attendance?
Absolutely.
And Bill will be doing some demonstrations, I assume?
Yes, correct. Demonstrations, some limited trail rides. We'll probably spread him as thin as we possibly can.
That's right. We're going to work him.
He does a great PowerPoint presentation, so I'm sure that will also be part of the draw.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're not familiar with Bill Burke, he's certainly a friend of the show, and I've shared brown water with him. He is an original contestant in the 1991 Camel Trophy. I think it was 1991. He was part of the American team. So yes, he does excellent presentations. So we have RTV, we have trails, we've got evening dinners and other meal options for folks to gather. Then there will be sponsor booths. So they'll be putting on, I guess, demonstrations, or they'll be selling their wares that you can talk to them about their different tools or capabilities that they might have, products they might have on offer. Did we miss anything?
How about the car show? We're going to have all kinds of different Land Rovers there, from the Desert Patrol vehicles to forward control Land Rover Series 1s, the latest Defenders, resto mods, you name it.
Will attendees be able to join the car show, or these are cars that we've invited to present themselves?
From what I understand, we're still in the beginning stages, but it's going to be open to register your vehicle.
Well, what about the registration? How will that work? And when will registration open up?
In order to attend, your local club will need to be a member of Anarc. This is due to insurance regulations. If your club hasn't already joined, encourage your club to join. Registration will open November 15th.
And if you're not part of a local club, how will that work? If you're in some state or area, maybe you're not aware of a club that's in your area.
Well, there is an individual membership that you can join Anarc directly. We strongly can encourage folks to join a local club. An example is a social level club can join for $100 annual dues. For an individual to join Anarc, it's $35. So if you got three of your buddies to get together and form a social group club and join at social level, you'd save $10, and the four of you would each get in for $25 apiece.
And it doesn't have to be a local club. I belong to clubs that are out of the country or in other parts of the states. So if you don't have a local club, there's nothing stopping you from joining one that you're affiliated with.
If you've been to MAR, you're already a member of ROAV.
Correct.
Our local club here in the Pittsburgh area, Fort Pitt Land Rover Group, is just have to send that check in, but we've become a social member of Anarc. You're welcome to join the Fort Pitt Land Rover Group. But we could become the largest club in the world just because all these people from
promoting it.
Yes.
Well, they hear about us every month if they're listening to the show. Will there be a specific website that people can go to register for the event?
Yes. If you go to www.anarc.club, you'll see the opening page will have a link to the registration page and more detailed information about the 75th Jubilee.
Of course, have a link in the show notes for you too. So if you're not familiar how to spell Anarc, because I have to think about it every time myself.
Well, you have to think about that with a lot of words, John.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. That's true. And it is .club, not .com.
Or .org. It's a .club.
Anticipation of how much registration will cost?
That's still in the works, John. But we're going to keep it as reasonable as possible.
Do you anticipate that's going to be per truck, or will that be per person? Like if you're bringing your family and, are you going to pay for the truck, or are you going to pay for individually?
It's still under discussion, but I believe it's going to be per truck. Different things like meals will be added to the cost of registration for the different separate activities, but it will be by truck.
And what about lodging? I take it that's not included in your registration cost. That will be separate, correct?
Lodging in the rooms is an extra fee, but the basic or primitive camping, as we call it, is part of your registration fee.
And then elevated tent camping with power is an additional fee, and RV hookups are also in the RV park with an additional fee.
But if you show up in your Land Rover and you're living out of the back of it, basically, that's included?
That's included.
Cool.
And how many trucks are we able to accommodate for the event? Is there an anticipated amount? Are we going to limit registration?
I don't think we've capped it. In 98, there was 400, and we totally maxed out the facility.
Damn.
But everyone, our marquees, our camping, everything was in the parking lot. That has changed. In 25 years, that has evolved to a really nice resort. So I'm guessing we can have the same amount of campers in the parking lot, but we have 200 rooms in the lodge. We have the RV park. We have the camping facilities. So I could see doubling that to 800 vehicles without stressing the facility.
That'd be a big event.
Well, what does Mike think on that number?
No, I agree, Bruce. I think we could do that without any problem. The facility is much bigger than it used to be and much better designed. The traffic flows better, new driveways, new roads. Wait till you see it. It's something else.
Okay, but how many trucks can the trail network support?
Same amount.
Really?
We got 800 acres there. And if we're planning on having 600-700 trucks, first, they won't all be out there at the same time.
Well,
and,
hopefully not.
Well, it's going to be guided. You're going to sign up. So
okay. All right.
We'll
that's the equalizer. Okay.
So, it'll be spread out. So if we have 700 folks that want to be out on the trails, we're not going to do it all at once, but over the course of the day or the weekend, we'll get you all out there.
Plus, there'll be competing activities. Bill Burke will be speaking, doing demonstrations. There's going to be activities going on at the sponsor areas. There will be, the RTV as an example. So there will be some competing activities.
It's a celebration of Land Rover's birthday, so it's not predominantly an off-road event. So there's going to be a little bit of something for everyone.
And so are there any activities or opportunities, I should say, for participating clubs to sort of help out in advance, like doing preparation or trail building, stuff like that, or helping manage, 800 vehicles? Is that something that Anarc is just sort of going out to each club and saying, hey, what can you do? Or is that something that new clubs joining would want to reach out about?
Yeah, we welcome the help. All participating clubs. We'll have a way to interested volunteers can sign up and join the fun as getting this thing going.
Yeah, and right now the Anarc board is reaching out to all the clubs over the next couple of weeks to see what level of involvement they want in this project.
If you're not part of a club, you have about a month to organize yourself to maybe join a club if you wish to join in at the the reduced rate of being part of a club for the Jubilee. So Anarc is having its Diamond Jubilee June 14th through the 18th, 2023 at Great Peak Mountain Resort. That's in Cortland, New York, which, if I remember correctly, is not too far from Ithaca and Syracuse. When I say close, we're talking 30, 40, 50 miles. It's on the eastern side of the Finger Lakes in New York.
It's just off the index finger.
Well, that is the 75th Diamond Jubilee, celebrating Land Rover's 75th anniversary. But there was let's go back in history and talk a little bit about the 50th Jubilee, which took place at the same place, coincidentally, and that was back in 1998. And was that the first time Anarc did something, and that was also a Jubilee?
Yes, that was the origin of Anarc, was for the 50th anniversary of Land Rover. A group of individuals got together. The clubs got to talking. Ottawa Valley and Rovers Owners Association of Virginia were the founding clubs, along with a couple other clubs got together and worked to put on the event.
And why was Greek Peak chosen?
I was there at the 50th. And I was president of ROAV at the time, but I can't tell you why Greek Peak was chosen. Maybe Bruce can tell you.
I can't either. I was going to tap Dixon for that because he seems to have his finger on the formation of the 50th more than I do. I don't know.
I'm just wondering if it was because of the facility or because maybe it was located centrally to all the clubs involved.
I think it may have been location, for the folks in Canada, to spread it out maybe, but it wasn't because of the facility, because back in 98, it was a ma and pa ski slope. There was no facility there to speak of.
Huh, okay.
And so you had 400 trucks in attendance?
In attendance in the parking lot. We had
that must have overwhelmed ma and pa.
They basically ignored us.
When you're like cockroaches, eventually you'll go away, or
we had a 3-mast event tent set up in one corner, and we had a few pop-ups here for vendors and other corners of the parking lot. And registration was done basically in the foyer of the locker room, heading out to the ski lift. Very simple event as far as the facility was concerned.
The only time we got on the mountain was for the RTV.
That is correct. And another club, the Finger Lakes Club, organized the off-roading on property, basically off the mountain.
So there was off-roading, there was an RTV. I take it there was some social gatherings.
Yes, basically all in the parking lot.
All in the parking lot.
It was a great time. Everyone had a ball. The contrast between what it was in 98 and what it is now is vast.
So, Bruce, what Land Rover did you take to in 98?
I didn't.
Oh, interesting.
Great story. The night before, I was tarting up the late 2A pigsty, and I decided everyone's going to be crawling under the bonnets and all that I would pressure wash the engine.
Uh-oh.
And normally I do that with the engine running. Long story short, one of my breather lines was unhooked, and I hydro-locked my engine 12 hours before I was to head to Greek Peak.
Oh, boy.
So Jeff Aronson was going to lay over at the house when he got off the island. So I rode with Jeff Aronson to Anarc while my vehicle sat with a fetched up engine here.
Wonderful. So what do you plan to take to this year's Jubilee?
The Series 1. Timbits, the Series 1 will be there.
Nice.
I am not driving it. Greek Peak is exactly 500.1 miles from driveway to driveway. So I will be trailering the Series 1, probably behind the 319.
And how about you, Mike? What did you take back in 98?
I had a 1979 West German market Range Rover Classic 2-door.
Ooh.
That's what went.
Nice.
And I drove it up from Virginia. It was a great truck.
What do you when do you plan to take next year?
I'll probably take my 1968 Series 2A 88.
You'll be driving it or trailering it?
I think I'm going right now. I think I'm going to stay in my RV and trailer behind the RV.
There we go. And I understand that's as we get older, sometimes maybe not driving that is and trailering it's a better option.
Sometimes there's an advantage of taking your house with you.
This
That
is
is
true.
true, as Bill Burke always does. Anyways, I have a question for Mike. Is there any chance that two-door is going to show up next year?
Well, it now belongs to Bob Steele, and he has restored it, and he says he's going to bring it.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Excellent.
Wonder if it runs on brown water.
Definitely will.
So I did hear from Dixon regarding the 98 rally gathering that took place at Greek Peak, and because he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it today. And his comment here was that Anarc was quite successful in the first iteration back in 98. And this might explain why no one remembers anything, because he goes on to say the error at the time was having the organizing committee being the executive committee of Anarc. I think those involved had some sort of fear or PTSD from engaging in that kind of in another Jubilee event again. Folks took on a lot of work back then. That's probably why some of the memories have faded, because they just didn't want to.
They've chosen to block it out.
Well, this is not a walk in the park event to set up. So no, it's a lot of work for all the organizers. We're basically going to eat, breathe, and sleep Greek Peak for the next 7 months.
Absolutely. Yes, there's the Anarc board of directors, which is giving direction to setting up the event itself. Meanwhile, also handling the club aspect of it, getting the clubs to join and getting that part moving and setting the stage for all activities. And then there's the event organizing committee, which I'm also on, organizing all the things we've just talked about for the 75th celebration. So yes, there's a lot of work going on.
Of course, none of you board members have anything else you're doing either in the meantime in terms of events.
Or jobs.
Yeah.
Or podcasts.
All the people in the committees and on the board of directors are a talented group of individuals with experience putting on events. So I think it's really going to be something to look forward to.
And a second,
I completely agree. Being involved in the activities, there's a lot of thought being put into the activities that are taking place, a lot of discussion. We're almost seems like we meet on a weekly basis, but we're not. But it seems like that sometimes. We have Zoom calls, and there's usually, yes, Bob usually does have, because he's on the committees. Bob usually does have brown water in his hand while we have these meetings. Hopefully, I'm not revealing anything that gives Bob away. So.
Oh, you've just ruined the whole secret. Now everyone knows how the sausage is made.
There was a 50th. Was there a reason why there were no further Anarc gatherings after that point? Did something happen? I know something happened. It's a leading question.
I think the biggest thing was Anarc for the 50th was really envisioned for just the 50th. Anarc now, the rebirth of Anarc, is also about clubs and having a unified voice for everything from getting insurance rates lowered to supporting initiatives like protecting public access to North America's trail systems. So there's a lot more vision in the new Anarc than I think there was in the old Anarc, though I could be wrong.
No, I agree with you, Mike. The new Anarc isn't going to go away after the 75th. Plan is to be an umbrella club for all the other clubs in North America, just basically a clearinghouse, just to try to keep everyone banded together.
And a lot has changed in the last 25 years, as you all know so well. The land access thing is big. It's changed a lot since then. And obviously just club membership has changed a ton in that time period as well, because, at the time, the sort of internet usage of internet by clubs was probably limited to like mailing lists and forums. And that just sort of,
dialing up at 14.4.
Facebook.
There were no forums. There were no forums back then.
It was dial up bulletin boards and mimeographed mailers.
Oh gosh.
Exactly. So everything sort of got scattered to the wind, with all the, Facebook and the forums and mailing lists have almost nearly died off. I imagine that it takes a lot more work to keep, in-person clubs going at this point than it did back then.
Well, then, people changed. The fraternal club seems to be on the decline in the past 25 years also, just probably because it's more easy to connect with folks with social media. So getting together that one night a month with all of your pals is now done every night of the week via Facebook or email, so on and so forth.
Absolutely. I think that you've hit the nail on the head. I think that's exactly correct. The good and the bad, the good of connecting people, but the bad of not connecting people in person and having that.
Or for more than 120 characters at a time.
The 98 50th anniversary event took place in Greek Peak, and we're doing that again now for the 75th. And it kind of comes off as being maybe a little East Coast centric. Has there any thought been given to, especially now that we have better communications and connections with people in instantaneous, about including our brothers and sisters, Land Rover fans, friends from central continent and the western side of the continent?
I know we've tossed around some different ideas, and the one that I like to focus on that is that Anarc will support clubs throughout North America in their events. So we would rotate around to highlighting a particular club and event every year, and then possibly every 5 years have a nationwide event in different locations throughout the country, sponsored by a host club.
Yeah, I guess that's something we didn't mention was that I think the intent, while Anarc will continue, we don't necessarily plan to have an event every year.
Right.
It's a bit much.
Or that it'll be hosted in the same part of the country by the same people.
Right.
Exactly.
Doing all the work.
Right.
Exactly.
I think a good way to handle that, of having some sort of Anarc event rotate around the continent, and be a good way to handle that if folks want to step up in their area. We do have people from the East Coast that travel to the West Coast, and
vice versa. Yeah.
Good example of that is all the folks from out this way that head out west for the national rally. I know it's a different name now, but back in the day it was the national rally, and it alternated every year between two different locations. And so we've got people who travel, and we've got this precedent for an event that moves from one location to another.
And back in 98, we did have folks from the West Coast that made a 2-week trek to head east and back again. And I think we've had a California club and a New Mexico club already join our ranks for the 75th. So again, it's going to be spread out across the country.
And I guess this wouldn't preclude someone from maybe the West Coast of having another event that takes place in 2023 if they wanted to go about that.
Well, no, let me touch on that, because we didn't mention that when we were talking about the 75th. One of the things that we're planning on doing is having a national or international broadcast celebration electronically with clubs throughout North America and probably all over the world if we can work it out.
Very nice.
We'd have to find somebody in amongst all the Land Rover community that knows anything about computer networks, though.
Very true. Very true.
About doing a live streaming transmission. Yeah. I think it may have been an idea that I had and I'd forgotten about it, but yes, it's something that can be done. Well, I guess mention or an idea of maybe having like a toast to Land Rover at a certain point that we might stream something around the world and try to have everybody join in in their local time zone if they can.
Raise a glass of 90 weight.
Oh, I like that. There we go. We should come up with a mixed drink and call it the 90 weight.
Well, no meaning of brown water.
That's literally.
Yeah.
Then again, we could call it the Bob Steele in honor of Bob and the brown water.
True.
And Bob's going to hear that because, Bob, I'm leaving that in the podcast.
90 proof, 90 weight. Huh?
There you go.
So this wouldn't preclude a club from doing something in 2023 if they in the West Coast maybe, or is that if they wanted to work with Anarc, I guess, to hold some other event at another point of time?
Hopefully they wouldn't do it the same weekend.
Yeah. This is Anarc's 75th Jubilee celebration. This is our international North American celebration. We encourage other clubs, of course, to have events throughout the year, but this is Anarc's premier event.
Anarc, I know I keep doing both. Started back in 98, has come out of retirement, so to speak, and we hope to have it continue into the future, putting on events in North America. And the 75th anniversary Jubilee, as you've been hearing us talk about, take place next year. The website is anarc.club, and it takes place again June 14th through 23rd in Cortland, New York. And that's where you'll be able to learn more and also register for the event. November 15th is a targeted date for registration to open. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We're inviting everyone in North America, or even if you're international and you want to bring your Land Rover over, come and join us in Greek Peak.
Would it be all right for them to show up without a Land Rover?
It's been known to happen.
All right.
I guess that is a good question that you bring up, Harold. Can you register and attend without bringing a Land Rover?
Yes, if you plan to come and to camp and enjoy the activities, maybe ride along with somebody, but you're going to be on site through the whole event, you would need to register.
Or stay at the hotel.
Stay at the hotel, the lodge.
I'll have to think that the lodge is blocked off from now until 90 days before the event. So you basically have to be an Anarc member to get a room at the lodge. The person on the street that wants to come to the event without a vehicle is not going to get a room.
Unless they're a member.
Unless they register, correct.
Then if you come in a Freelander, you have to leave that outside.
If you show up with a Freelander, we'll get it in the lobby somehow. Promise.
Yeah. You get an award.
See, I've been pushing that if you register with
No, not pushing. You got to drive it.
Got to come under its own power, and that will give it an award. Yes.
Right, See, I wanted to make the case that if you have a functioning Freelander and you register and you show up on site, your registration is comped. You get in for free.
No. Your registration is being paid for by John Costage, the biggest Freelander fanatic.
That is not happening. That is not happening. I think Anarc should comp the Freelander owner who has a functioning one that arrives on site.
There's something to that.
There is. And I should add, this is a last minute addition to thinking about how the podcast will be involved with the Jubilee. Shared this idea with the organizing committee, and they seem to like it. And the plan is podcast would sponsor having the best I can call it right now is kind of a glamour photo of your truck that you bring, and we'll have a professional photographer and take a very professional photo of your vehicle with some different ideas on how to make that happen. And that's, I think, what we're going to sponsor, add to the list of activities for the Jubilee. I think it'd be a nice commemorative thing that you could take with you, or you can get it printed on site potentially, or we'll give you, you'll be able to download a copy and then you could have it framed and put on your wall. Have that kind of like hero glamour shot of you and your truck, or just your truck.
Sign me up. You have a customer.
Make that too. Yeah.
We'll I guess we'll have some different backgrounds that you could have your truck displayed upon. And
Harold, yes, there's, as you might imagine, with having trucks as big as they are and getting them into full frame, and then having like a green screen. That's the kind of my thought originally, and again, working with a photographer and other people to figure this out. But maybe having a green screen that would be behind it, kind of, you'd have to have a truck size green screen and more. And then have some interesting backgrounds that you could choose from that. I have a couple different ideas thought of, but we'd have to get those photographs and then include those, and then you would take that.
Unless you brought a Freelander, and then in which case we would just have it in a wall of flames.
You get a free. I will pay for that photo if you bring a functioning Freelander. Yes, the podcast will sponsor the Freelander getting its hero photo.
So that means there's a chance I could get a photo of my Series 1 on top of Mount Everest.
Yes.
Perfect.
I was thinking like Nürburgring in motion, because I always like those in motion pictures. So it looks like the vehicle's traveling really fast. Maybe a Camel Trophy muddy stretch. You might have been to superimpose your vehicle inside that.
How about upon the steps of the Gateway Arch in St. Louis?
I think that's been done.
But everyone could have their truck in that setting
without a court fee, right?
Right.
Without DHS escorting you off the steps
and confiscating your camera
or your truck.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for letting us know about the 75th Jubilee and Anarc. But since we've got you on the podcast, let's get a little update from Bruce since the last time we talked to you at the Winter ROMP. What have you been up to, Bruce? I know you've made some changes. I guess set up a conservancy to protect the area that the Winter ROMP takes place. Can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to rack my brain to when we last chatted. I think it was before the property purchase.
It was about maybe 2 years, maybe a year and a half before that.
Vey. So we got some catching up here.
Couple of things have happened.
The trail network that ROMP uses was owned by a friend of mine who passed away, and his son inherited the property. He really wanted to sell the property. We're hemming and hawing about purchasing the property, and then someone else showed up on site and said, we want to buy the property.
Uh-oh.
So Peter Vollers in Vermont came up with the idea of setting up a GoFundMe account to raise the money to purchase the property. And mind-boggling as it was, we came up with the entire purchase price in 48 hours.
Yeah, so ridiculously short amount of time.
Property was purchased, and it was supposed to be a gift to me. Peter said, this is the money, this is a gift. You've always held the event. Now you have the property that it's set on. And I don't work that way. So basically, we created the Sebastian Cook Millennium Green, which is a green space, and it is conserved for perpetuity as an open space. And it's open to the entire community to use. The green host Winter ROMP. Winter ROMP is now hosted from the green. And also the community can use it for fundraisers, BMX, biking. We have people out there with horses. There's some limited ATV use. There's not a lot of that, but it's mostly we're pushing for non-motorized use of the property. The trail network is increased. We have parking areas so people can park and go onto the property. And we're working on a kiosk so that people that stagger onto the property can easily find their way throughout it.
So wait, you said you're pushing for non-motorized use, but yet there's a trail network. Are there like separate things?
Yes, there's walking trails too, and a portion of the site is in the Sebastian Cook watershed, and you can't have motorized use over that portion of property if the ground isn't frozen.
Of course, once your rover dies, all the trails become walking trails.
That is true. So it's basically a green space for the community to use, like a giant park, if you will. Based on the Millennium Greens over in the UK. The reason we came up with calling it a green is back in 96, in the UK, they were putting together the green proposals for the Millennium. And that was the same year that we started ROMP. So we figured we would copy the UK model, which is the greens in the UK are basically managed by a board. I'm being real general here. And they're owned by that committee so that the council can't decide in 5 years they're going to put up a tower block on that site. It's always going to be open space. And the same way, the green, in the next couple of years, there will be a board of directors, which will take over the day-to-day running of the Millennium Green.
But just to be clear, because I guess I'm still confused, this will not push the Winter ROMP off that site, but by having non-motorized vehicles.
No. That's for the general public. If the green can host a motorized event, the green can host a horse event or whatever. The green is open. There's no gate there. People can come use the green for non-motorized purposes, year round.
And how much utility is that? How much use is that seeing by the public, non-Winter ROMP?
It increases every year. It's there are people out there every weekend. I would say throughout spring, summer, and fall, there's always someone out there. Raise revenue for maintenance, so on and so forth. It's also a hip camp site. There's 4 hip camp sites out there, which this year has seen a lot of use.
So your Rover ownership has changed a bit too. I believe you've added a disco to your fleet. Am I correct?
I have a Discovery 3. I actually have another Discovery 2, which the green owns the Discovery 2, and it will be raffling it off again during Winter Romp as it did last year.
Do you still have the Rangy Classic?
I do. It's in the queue at the body shop for sills and rear cross member.
Of course.
But it's still chugging along.
Yes.
But my daily driver right now is an L319. Yes.
Excellent. I assume you like it.
I do. Yes. But the Classic is still my preferred long distance Voyager.
Thanks very much, Bruce, for the update. And thank you, I guess, on behalf of the Land Rover community for securing that space for the Winter Romp in perpetuity.
Glad we can do it.
And I take it the Romp is taking place again in February of 2023?
That is correct. President's Weekend.
So that actually will probably be the first event in the Jubilee year.
That is correct. And we have a few surprises in the works. One shameless plug.
Do it.
I just got a signed 1996 collage from Lou, who was the photographer for the 96 Camel Trophy,
Nice.
which will be raffled off.
Excellent. Excellent. Yes, I know the podcast listeners, you can't see it, but it's a really cool picture of Camel Trophiness.
Well, you just have to go to the Romp and see it there.
That's right.
That's correct, or possibly bring it home.
Now, is there still lodging available for the Romp? Does that sell out quickly?
Or is it too late already?
Yeah.
No, it's I haven't checked this weekend, but I think we still have around 60 rooms at the Waterville Grand. The entire Waterville Grand is blocked off for us, as it is every year. The rate now is $60 a night per room. It's not, you can put 20 people in the room if you want.
Well, it have to be 20 people you like, but
I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah, that'd be awful cozy.
Right. But anyways, nope, there's about 60 rooms left. Probably this is September. I'm guessing by the middle of November, those will be chewed up. There will be some spillover lodgings. And of course, winter camping is still an option.
And did Big G's survive COVID?
Big G's did survive COVID. It was a bit of a challenge last year because ROMP resumed last year and Big G's had to work overtime to accommodate us. But yeah, they pulled it off. They're looking forward to seeing us again this year.
Excellent. I'll have a link to the Winter Romp for anyone who's maybe interested in going up to Waterville. Yeah, sounds like I should add it to my list this year, and it'll be all Land Rover for 2023.
Yeah, you haven't been in a couple.
I haven't.
Years.
No, I know, and I
need a few years actually. Yeah,
it has been a few years. I think maybe it's time to make the return trip. I think I'll try to reserve that room before podcast goes out, so I have a space. So, Mike, you are a person that's been lurking in the Land Rover world. I say lurking just because I've heard your name for a number of years and finally got to meet you. So tell us about Mike McCaig. How did you get into Land Rovers? When did that start?
Oh, golly. If I tell you that, I'm going to give away my age. I'm afraid to say that I still have my original Land Rover, and that's the one I'm going to be taking to the Jubilee.
That's nothing to apologize for. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, but I bought it in 1971. So
did you buy it new?
No, it's a 1968. So it was 3 years old when I bought it. So
sweet.
It's been rebuilt several times, but it still goes. And
so how did that come about? Had you been a car person before that, and then fell in love?
I believe it or not, my first British car was a 1963 Jaguar XKE.
Oh,
I know.
Series 1.
Brandy new?
No, it was, I bought it for $900.
Open two-seater, or was it a coupe?
It was a coupe. First engine I ever got into, I rebuilt the engine and sent it off to the body shop and had it painted, and it was a beautiful machine, but I was 18 years old and couldn't afford to insure it. Uh-huh. So I sold it and bought a Land Rover. What was I thinking?
That's pretty cool. So what did you get? You said 1968. That would have been a Series 2?
Series 2A, short wheelbase, 88. And it's been everything from a regular top to pickup cab, and now it's soft top.
How many engines?
Oh, it's on its fourth. It has a 200 TDI in it.
Sweet.
Good man. Good man.
Nice.
Have you named it?
That's the one Land Rover I've never named. I've named my D90, my 110, we talked about earlier, my two-door was called Bernie, but I haven't named this, though. My wife calls it Eve because it's the first Land Rover.
Ooh, that's actually a pretty good name.
Yeah, it works out.
Continue through the list that you have. So you started out with a 68 2A.
Yeah, I've had several series vehicles. Last 2 years ago, I restored a 69 Bug-Eye, which was a really original vehicle. I did a frame off on it, and quite a nice truck when I literally came out of a barn. But I already had an 88. I couldn't let go of Eve, so it went on down the road. I have a 62 109 station wagon and hiding in the back 40. That's due for restoration at some point.
It's on the list.
It's on the list. And I have a Range Rover Classic. I'm like Bruce. I love the Classic, so I've got one that I drive when I'm not driving the series.
That's Bernie?
No, Bernie is now Bob Steele has Bernie.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
So what's the driving RRC that you have? Do you have a name for that?
Hot Flash Hannah.
Love it. Is there a reason for the name? Should we ask?
Because it's middle-aged?
Yeah, well, she's middle-aged. It's a 95 long wheelbase, and she went through a period of running hot. So,
all right.
And it's still on the road?
Oh, yeah, it's still on the road. It'll be at Mars, matter of fact, along with my series.
Seeing Eve, that's what got you into Land Rovers? Had there been any dalliances beforehand, or did you just see it and it kind of spoke to you and like, I have to have this?
Well, the interesting thing was when I was having the Jaguar painted, there was another vehicle in the body shop, and it happened to be a 109 station wagon. And the owner was there, and we got to talking, and I lived in Virginia Beach at the time, and you could get on the beach at Sandbridge and drive down to Nag's Head on the beach, and I'd ridden in some Jeeps, and so that kind of had me interested. And he told me a story about a group of college kids that took a Land Rover and drove it to Singapore. That stuck with me for a long time.
I think I might have heard something about that.
Yeah. And that got me interested in the Land Rover. And so when I decided to let the Jag go, I actually went down to the Jeep dealership, and here was a Land Rover sitting in the Jeep dealership with a flat tire and no glass in the back window. That should have been my first clue.
It's a bit ominous.
My second clue was when I asked the guy if it ran, he said, "Yeah, come back in a half an hour." I should have told
Taking it now.
My third clue is when I got back there, it was sitting there running. But anyway, I bought it, and the rest is history.
That's a really cool kind of origin story of how you got into to Land Rovers then.
Yeah, and little would I know that after hearing that story years later, I would be involved in the Oxford project.
So yeah, it must have been special for you then to actually see and sit.
Well, you were part of Dave's big road trip, weren't you?
Yes, David and I was the co-driver. David and I brought Oxford back from the West Coast, and it was quite an experience. It was a trip of a lifetime. And
I gotta imagine that's enough seat time in Oxford for anybody.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, when you roll into Barksdale after going through the Black Rock Desert at 110 degrees Series 1, you'll never forget that experience.
And he's made a couple of videos about that and posted those, and you two talk about the trip. And the one that sticks with me is how you didn't go to the campground that got consumed by fire.
Yes, we drove right by the entrance to the Mammoth Campground, looked at the sign, and people were driving with headlights on because of the smoke. And we just decided, if we go up there, we won't be able to see anything because of the smoke. So we just continued on, and luck would have it. It was a good thing we missed that disaster.
Looking at your list, nothing really in the modern Land Rovers, as Dixon would call them, any plushies. Are you kind of in the Dixon camp?
I've had a chance to drive a new Defender, and I think it's quite a capable vehicle, and they're wonderful. I've watched them off-road. I got a chance to drive Bob Steele's out in Colorado and through some of the mountain pass areas. As I've gotten older, I've gotten to appreciate the early ROV vehicles, and I'm right there with the series vehicles right now. I had NAS D90. I've had a Rest of the World 110. All great vehicles. The series vehicle right now and the classic have my heart.
You got involved with ROAV back in the day, and it sounds you said you were president of ROAV at one point.
Actually, three different times I was
glutton for punishment. Were you?
Yeah, glutton for punishment. I was president during the 50th. I guess I would say I'm a founding member. I joined in '76. I've been a member ever since.
That was back when it was ROAR.
Yes, the Rovers Owners Association of Richmond, right. I joined just that. It changed its name about 6 months afterward. And, I was cleaning out my series truck, and I, even though it's been torn apart 2 or 3 times, there's still some little recesses that things have been stashed in. And I found a copy of a 1976 newsletter that says Owners Association of Richmond on it. So I think I'll bring it to the rally, the MAR event.
So before there was ROAV, there was ROAR.
Correct.
Cool. So ROAV has been around then since, was that 70? 70 something?
75, 76, yes. That's when it became really active. The first Mid-Atlantic rally was in 94, and that occurred on my farm. And we're coming up on the anniversary here in a couple of years, so that ought to be fun.
So wait a minute. You were the host of the very first MAR?
For 94 and 95 was held solely on my farm. And the open area, you're talking about 30 acres, not a big place. And where everybody camped was 15 acres. And the last year they camped, can you believe 250 trucks showed up? There wasn't room to walk.
So the trail was basically just the path around the parking lot.
Yeah, well, we had trails through my woods, but that's when we were able to reach out to the local area and talk to the Adamson's family at Pearls Pond, and were invited to move to that area. So in 96, we had the camping at my farm, but we had all the trails were at Pearls Pond, which was pretty rugged back then. There wasn't even really a driveway into the facility. It was just a trail through the woods. And this year we're going back to Pearls Pond, which is pretty exciting.
It is. So how many trucks at the first MAR then?
I think the first MAR, again, old age is getting to me, but the first one we had just under 100.
That's still impressive.
Yes,
that is still impressive. Yeah. It
was sponsored by Land Rover Richmond, and we called it the Workhorse of the World Rally. The next year was built like a locomotive rally, and we rented a local train and loaded people up and took them to a picnic site, and the train was robbed by people on horseback, and it was a lot of fun.
Whoa! There was sounds like a show put on too.
It was
dinner theater.
It was. Back in the early days, we always tried to have a theme. We had the Gods Must Be Crazy rally, where we rented the local drive-in. We had Elegance in the Rough, where we had creative black tie competition for the evening meal. Always had some kind of fun theme.
So that all started with you.
Well, it's, it was a group of people. It started on my farm, but you'll probably have heard the name Sandy Grice, and he was involved in the original Anarc 50th. He was a cohort in crime, and we organized it together along with our wives and put on a good party.
So your wife was involved in creating MAR and helping out. Anybody else in your family did she get the Rover bug, and did you get anybody else into the Rover bug?
Well, of course, my wife, I have to give her credit. She's been behind me and put up with me for all these years. Both my kids grew up riding in the Land Rovers and love it. Currently, my daughter has a Range Rover Classic, and she's on the board of directors with the Rovers Owners Association of Richmond. She's the secretary, and she loves wheeling that truck.
Excellent. That's cool.
Well, yeah, except I'm the one that fixes it.
So you didn't teach her that part. She didn't pick that one up, huh? She didn't pick up that part.
Well, actually, she has. I've got big hands. She's got nice slender hands. I'm really right-handed. She's really left-handed. So we work together well on the truck. That's pretty much it. I've stepped back from my involvement with ROAVs to some degree. I'm no longer on the board, but I'm actively helping put on the event as a volunteer. A fun thing. I'm involved with the owner of the facility in their bird hunting. They asked me to come and drive one of their 110s they use for their upland hunts, taking people around for pheasant hunting, and that's kind of neat. So
that's at Pearls Pond.
That's at Pearls Pond, Little George Rod and Gun Club.
It's become a rod and gun club since we were there before, right?
Exactly, and it's a wildlife refuge. Yes.
So they have 110s that they use on the facility there.
Yes, they have two 110s, ex-military 110s that have been set up for taking people around. One of them has been converted really nicely with dog boxes in the side and gun racks and seating in the back, so the guys can get in and out. Guys and gals get in and out easily. And they just finished a series of dove hunts, and the pheasant hunting will start in the fall, sometime in November.
By the time this comes out, Mar will be happy. Hopefully the folks that are there can say hi to Mike and thank him for actually keeping Mar going.
I'm it's quite a legacy. I'm pleased that it's lasted so long. It's brought so much joy and fun to so many people. I see kids that have grown up in the Land Rover community and now are involved and have their own Land Rovers. It really makes me happy to see it go.
On behalf of the Land Rover community, if I can do this, thank you for what you've done for the community, especially in North America, and keeping Mar going and helping out now with the 75th Jubilee.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, John.
Bruce and Mike, really appreciate you guys coming on the program, talking about Anarc, past, present, and also the 75th Diamond Jubilee taking place. As I know I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Thanks very much for what you've done in North America, especially here for bringing everybody together as fans, owners, and enthusiasts of the Land Rover badge and Land Rover mark. Thank you, gentlemen.
John, thank you so much for having me on. I want to remind everybody, if they want information on the biggest event next year, the 75th Jubilee, to go to www.anarc.club. Registration opens November 15th. There'll be much more information. We'll have stuff on social media, so keep tuned for that. There'll be great trails, car show, RTV, parties in the evening, drive-in movie theater. We have all kinds of good stuff planned. John, thanks again. And Bruce, please jump in there and correct me on anything I've done wrong.
No, well, again, thank you, John, for having us on. And Mike, I think you pretty much covered everything. I just can't emphasize enough. Get out there and register just as soon as those gates open on the 15th of November. And we'll see you all there. And if you're a club member, go pester your club to get involved with Anarc. We're here for the long haul.
And hopefully in 5 years, another group of people will put on the 80th anniversary. Feel free.
I'm confident that will happen. Yes.
Feel free to step up. I enjoy working with you guys on this, but yes, it is a lot of time. But yeah, other people are allowed to step in and help out. There's nothing wrong with getting additional people.
Exactly.
As once might be enough for organizing this kind of an event.
Again, thanks very much, gentlemen, for coming on the podcast. Hopefully we'll have you back to hear more stories in the future.
Anytime.
Thank you, John. Really was great being on.
We hope you enjoyed show number 114. Thanks to Harold for joining us on today's show. Thank you, Harold.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks to Morgan, who couldn't join us for the episode today, but was able to join us for Bruce and Mike. And Dixon. Dixon's just, he's flying too much in Placid Lassie. I think his priorities need to get readjusted.
Apparently, Land Rovers don't leak enough oil for him. He had to step up to the vintage airplanes where you can fill a kiddie pool full of oil.
And thanks to Bruce and Mike for telling us about the Diamond Jubilee in Anarc. And thank them too for all their contributions to North America Land Rover community. Bruce for hosting the Winter Romp, and Mike helping to start ROAV, and which led into MAR. So thanks to them for what they've done. And thanks to the One True Pax for his continued production support. And let's encourage him to get a Land Rover functioning so he can join us at the Vintage Grand Prix. Visit our website, centresteer.com, to listen to previous shows and for show notes, which have links to stories discussed in today's podcast. We post a new podcast at the end of every month. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, voicemail, and you can directly support the show at patreon.com/centersteer. You can also buy a t-shirt, sticker, or buy us a tea/brown water. Click on store on the menu of our website for details. And if you have an idea for a guest, send us the details and contact information if you have it. In honor of Land Rover's 75th anniversary, you are invited to bring your Land Rover, especially Series and Defenders, to the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix in 2023. You now have 9 months to prepare and 8 months for Anarc's Diamond Jubilee. Get them ready. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear from you and what you're up to in your Land Rover. Until next time, I ask you to share the show with one other Land Rover enthusiast.
Thanks for listening. You may now resume your important things.
I sold it and bought a Land Rover. What was I thinking?